The AFL is one of the most multifaceted games in the world. Sabermetrics are so much harder to pull from this game than in most, if not all others. There's so many moving pieces, so much positional variety and versatility. But the only thing that really matters at the end of the day is this: the scoreboard. Get more points? Win. Simple. If you score the most points, no matter how bad your defense is, you make the finals. Usually, you're right at the top, which is pretty much expected. There was one club, though, that scored more than any other in a given season and failed to play a game in September. This is the 2023 Adelaide Crows, the wasted team. Thankfully, we've covered practically all of the backstory for the most human team in Australia, so we'll cut to the 2022 off-season. New recruit Jordan Dawson, fresh off being the first Crow since Matt Connell to win a best and fairest without a full season of experience at the club, has been made captain, replacing battered warrior Rory Sloane. Sloane doesn't have much relevance to our story here, but his predecessor does. Taylor Walker. We've covered his rise and fall. His 2020 was a disaster on the field, and his 2021 consisted of an unlikely Coleman medal run which ended with a racial slur, despite the word that he got suspended for being the only one I can say without having to bleep it. But context is everything. He deserved his suspension. He came back in round 4, 2022, just in time to take away all the attention from the AFLW team's 7 millionth grand final appearance. He tore a crap Essendon defence to shreds and sat at 12 goals after 3 appearances. He would score 47 goals, 23 for the season, never going goalless, with his per-game rate sitting comfortably amongst the league leaders. There were still doubts over Walker though. Yes, Darcy Fogarty had scored 31 goals in the last 12 games at 70% accuracy, but he'd only scored 2 after the first 10 rounds, and the next best key forward was the 14-goal from 11-game walking disaster that is Elliot Himmelberg, Freudian slip. The Crows needed a big season from a man who would turn 33 halfway through the season. If Walker made it to round 24, 2023, he would be the 9th oldest player in Crows history with a much bigger frame to heft around than any other man above him. Despite looking extremely exciting at times in 2022, Adelaide had a dearth of small forwards. Shane McAdam led the roving unit with only 23 goals, although he did miss 8 games, and for some reason the Crows cut Jimmy Goodboy Rowe. In fact, all of their small forwards missed time on the park, including Josh Rochelle. The Crows' most recent first-round pick, he did exactly what the Crows' first-round pick before him had done, kicking 5 in his first game in a narrow and entirely preventable loss. Thanks, Hayden. One of only 30 18-year-olds Adelaide had ever fielded. He was inconsistent and rested frequently throughout the year. He was no David Gallagher, sure, but he wasn't a Hart or Gunston. Not yet. Ashley and Martin reject Matthew Nix knew that he needed a gun small to fill the gaping chasm that Charlie and Eddie had left in the forward line. Enter Isaac Rankin. Born and raised in Adelaide, Rankin's draft year came just before Adelaide decided to become the worst they'd ever been. Picked up by the Gold Coast with pick 3, he chipped in with as many goals as a young small could reasonably be expected to score in that dumpster fire of a, quote, football team, end quote. Amongst the pick swap, Adelaide essentially parted with pick 5 to bring their boy back home, something that had been rumoured ever since Isaac first went to the Sunshine State. So the Crows had their key forward pillars set. They'd finished 14th in league scoring the year prior, below Essendon and Fremantle, which is never a nice place to be. But with Rankin as a new addition, and with an extra year of development for Rochelle and Thrillthorpe, they were set to rise up the ranks. Holy crap! For the first time since Eddie Betts, Taylor Walker and Josh Jenkins shared real estate in the top 10 scorers list, Adelaide topped the league in scoring. Amazingly, the second youngest team had orchestrated one of the biggest scoring rate rises by an individual team ever. Rankin notched the most goals by a Crow small forward since Eddie left the building, even despite leaving a few points on the table. Darcy Fogarty put together another season in the mid-30s, with Rochelle and Thrillthorpe adjusting to their new roles nicely. It was two relocated midfielders, however, who would be the biggest surprise scorers. The first was Ben Keys. The former Brisbane reject had come fresh off leading the Brownlow after 2022's fifth round and joined only Petrarca, Martin and Shai Bolton in scoring over 20 goals with over 400 disposals. What a season. The other, no one saw coming. I stretched the truth a bit earlier. Thrills was the first pick Adelaide had in the draft, whose pick number was before Rochelle's, sure, but the Crows had 3 first-rounders in 2020, and the second one was spent on Luke Pedlar. A year before, he'd been sitting on the bench as an unused medical sub, watching on as Jordan Dawson bowled the greatest in-swinger the Adelaide Oval has ever seen. Injury plagued his first 2 years, with only 5 games on the books, with 2 of those as an unused sub and 2 more being almost complete disasters. He'd done better, but still hadn't set the world alight in his 2 2023 starts, but then he goes and kicks 3 in a showdown, setting up 2 more and laying 4 tackles from a flank. Pedlar would go on to be a ground ball magnet and reliable goal sneak, with 55 tackles and 25 goals at a solid 62.5%. But none of these guys got in the top 20 for scoring. No. Unlike the Crows of 2005 and 2016, this was a one-man show. The 33-year-old Taylor Walker, despite scoring 3 goals 6 in the first 3 weeks, had the best year of his career. From his goalless showing in the first showdown, he would only score under 2 goals 1 more time, and he saved his best showing for game 250. As we all know, West Coast's injury crisis forced them to field several children, a few Rapper winners and a Woolworths shelf stacker, that last one isn't actually a joke, to fill the gaps. And it just so happened that Adelaide got to face the Eagles right at their lowest ebb. Walker took a whole 50 seconds to score the first, and after the shelf stacker drew the game level, Adelaide pissed around for a bit. Then Rankin and Walker got the gap up, combining for 4 in under 10 minutes. Walker scored 2 within 3 minutes of the second term opening, and he had 7 to half-time. For reference, 7 was as much as he'd mustered in his 249 prior games for the full length of any one contest. It took a while, but eventually Tex became the second man to crack 10 goals in a game since that year we all had to wear masks to get around. 174 points, their biggest score since 2016. 122 points, only the 6th time the margin in a Crows win ticked over 20 goals, with their first double-digit goal haul by a single player since 10-goal Tommy took GWS to school 10 years before. This brought Walker into the lead of the Coleman medal with an incredible 38 goals 13. From here, his accuracy fell as he chased the ultimate prize for forwards a 3rd time, including kicking 7 against an Alir, who was definitely not concussed. Yeah, not at all. A combined 4 goals 4 in a fortnight against the Queensland teams, whilst Charlie Curnow got his own bag of 10 against the West Coast, gave the Blue the lead. Walker, after missing a game, was 7 down, but he too had one last bite against the Eagles in the final round. He had 15 shots on goal as the usually team-oriented Walker threw everything he could at Charlie. He got 9 goals 4, his second best career haul in a game, ending on 76 goals, 34 behinds. Volume and rate-wise, it was his best season, but Charlie ended up chasing him down, as you'd expect a 26-year-old who was 10th in the league for free kicks to do. Walker had a brilliant season, indeed one of the very best my sabermetrics have recorded, but he didn't walk away with the medal. What he did do was score nearly a quarter of Adelaide's goals, pushing them just over the top of the potent Brisbane lineup, hello to a Charlie I actually like, to make them the very top scoring side in the league. Despite pre-season expectations of a finish just outside the 8, the Crows used this to make finals, and they do some real damage with that forward... Wait, what? Oh... Adelaide became the first team in the modern era to lead the league in scoring and lose their ticket to finals action. Not only that, they were the first team to score even 2,100 points in a season and not make the finals since 2014 Adelaide. Oh, God's sake. So, why did they miss out? Well, let's compare their 2023 selves to peak Adelaide. Pre-virus football was higher scoring and practically a different era, but even so, 2023 Adelaide actually conceded more than either of their Don Pike-led variants. This is reflected in their Pythagorean win total, which is significantly lower than those 2 years. It wasn't that the backline was bad, per se, more that they had a lot of rotation and inexperience back there. Tom Doedee was the most experienced key defender of the bunch, and that comes with two massive caveats. First, he only played 82 games, and second, he did his ACL halfway through the year. Nick Murray, Jordan Butts, Josh Worrell, Max Michelani, James Borlase and Mark Keane all performed very well, with Mitch Hinge also filling in for a role he's far too small for and posting great numbers. But the fact that so many key backs were needed, all with under 50 games of experience entering 2023, well, that explains why guys like Lukosius, Langford, Wright, Cameron, Lynch, and even Sampson, Freak, and Ryan were able to score multiple goals so easily. The small backs were also hyper-aggressive, with Miller and Smith producing above-average offensive production and Chase Jones contributing 16 total goals. This meant they could also be caught out by small forwards on the opposition on the break, with Toby Green and Cade Chandler taking advantage in particular. But comparing them to their past selves doesn't tell the whole story. Their 16.5 Pythagorean wins may be lower than most top-scoring teams, but they still place them an extremely comfortable 4th among the 2023 sides. This places them as a bigger outlier than even Geelong and Fremantle, the two biggest underperformers of the year. So it can't have been the defence alone. How did this happen? Let's start at the beginning. On a steaming hot round 1 day where the fans basically stood inside the freezers of the Sydney Showgrounds kebab shops to stay cool, Rankin and Rochelle had a combined 11 shots on goal. Yeah, no, the other way around. Isaac Rankin looked dangerous on his Crows debut, but he wasted a lot of chances, allowing GWS to come back from 31 points down to cruise to victory. Adelaide sharpened up, but even by round 7, any finals hopes they had were on the ropes. Then, along came Collingwood. Now, I was at the last Adelaide Pies game, and it took years off my life. I thought I'd never have to see that sort of wastefulness again against the same opponent. Cut to half-time and the Crows had kicked 3 goals 10. Josh Rochelle, who'd opened the season with 10 goals 4, kicked 0 goals 4, with Walker being rarely cited. Despite that, a Chase Jones goal 2 minutes into the last gave Adelaide a 22-point lead, having had 12 more scoring shots, including 7 of the last 8 scores of the game, the last 4 of which all came from the half-back flanker in Jones. Adelaide had one more behind, rushed, as Collingwood inexplicably launched an excruciating comeback. Adelaide led the match for nearly 2 hours. Collingwood led for exactly 30 seconds. Guess who won? After a run of 4 completely bizarre results, Adelaide met the Gold Coast in Darwin. The Crows looked uber-dominant early, with Wayne Miller punching the lead out to 35 before the second term was halfway over. So, of course, Adelaide crash and burn completely, losing the game by 25. Gross. Relief was at hand, though, with 2 byes in a row. God, I feel good after that. Who's next? Oh, you're kidding. I swear to God, if we cut to half-time and we're 3 goals 78 again, I'm gonna scream. Oh, my soul. Jake Saligo slightly reduced the embarrassment with a goal in the shadow of half-time. Okay, look, if we can score the next goal, maybe that can start something. Good. Actually, here we go. Walker scored 3 goals in a term for the 3rd time in the last 7 quarters he'd played, and his 4th goal of the game early in the last gave Adelaide a 13-point lead. Both sides had 7 scores for the rest of the game, with Collingwood having 2 of theirs come from a 17-foot American. The Crows scored 2 goals. The Magpies scored 5. Adelaide lose to Collingwood by under a goal for the 3rd goddamn time in a row. Can I show you something odd before the next heartbreak? Riley O'Brien is a ruckman who generally plays a kick behind the play when he roves. He averages a scoring shot every 4 games and a goal every 10. In a demolition of the shoddy Kangaroos, he scored 2 goals 1, the odds of that being about 1 in 400. Incredible. After being utterly outclassed by an Essendon side about a month away from voluntarily stepping into a wood chipper, Adelaide had to face the very giant side that would be operating said wood chipper. Both sides were wasteful, with Darcy Fogarty joining the fun, the usually deadly accurate Fogs slamming home 2 behinds in a 3-minute span. So, once again, Adelaide came to a dead stop in a last quarter against an expansion team. 3 times this season. Where are you now, Darren? Well, as it turns out, the Crows saved their 4th quarter effort for the next week. Unfortunately, that came at the expense of the rest of the goddamn game. 3 goals 9 at halftime, that seems about right. The Crom shaped up but still entered the final change 4 goals down. It was over. Shane McAdam opened up the final term with a goal, but it was just junk time stuff, really. Ben Keys grabs one a minute later, but this can't be a real comeback. No. Before the clock hits 5 minutes elapsed, Keys scores another, and before you know it, Taylor Walker levels it. The Crows have control. This is amazing. But Walker has a taste of blood. 2 6-pointers sandwiching a Brodie Smith bomb cut the margin back to 4. With 2 minutes left, the Crows have a final chance, but the ball dribbles through the wrong way. Oh, oops. Sorry. Wrong footage. Sorry about that, Saints fans. This is what I had to watch, and I deserve it. Pickett misses down the other end, and the Crows lose by a single score, with more behinds than goals, for the 3rd time in 2023. It wouldn't be the last. Walker is then deployed in the showdown to much the same effect as the nuclear bomb was deployed in Japan, and the Crows get redemption over the Gold Coast. They sit 11th, a win out of the gate with better percentage than all bar Geelong, who lose the next Friday night. 23 hours later, Adelaide again find themselves down at 3-quarter time to a top side. Just under 10 minutes after the first bounce of that quarter, Eric Hipwood kills the contest, blowing the margin out to a game-high 22, breaking the mark that Adelaide had set 7 minutes into the match. Amazingly, the final 6 scores of the game are all at Adelaide's end. Thilthorpe scores, Schoenberg scores, Rochelle, Walker and Laird all miss. A rush behind seals Adelaide's 4th single-score loss to a top 4 side, whilst under sea level in terms of accuracy. Thankfully, the next week they sit above 50% accuracy at 3-quarter time. That is the only good news. Adelaide has been played off the park. On a wet night at home, they look fundamentally inferior, and their 33-point deficit at 3-quarter time is utterly deserved. So, of course, Sydney's only score in the last is a behind kicked by a man named after a tasteless vegetable. Murphy takes 28 seconds to register the first goal of the final term, with Miller and Walker adding goals before the 5-minute mark, and it looks like we've seen this movie before. But over the next 24 minutes, Adelaide scores 7 straight behinds. The Collingwood games each took years off my life. This final quarter robbed me of a decade, and that's before we get to this. Ben Keys wins a free kick deep in Eddie Betts territory. As I said before, Keys has been impressive in 2023, but his goal kicking is atrocious. At 21 goals 18, it's his best season in terms of volume, but lifetime he sits at exactly 50%. Considering Adelaide are 2 points down here, only a goal will do. And, sure enough, he bends it around and just sneaks it home. He turns to the raucous crowd, performs his trademark celebration, and the boys mob him. Adelaide have not only completed their biggest three-quarter time comeback ever, but completely smashed that record. It's only the third time in a decade they've managed to wrestle back even an 18-point deficit from the final break, and they've done 33. The Swans, well, they're stuffed. They face a lot of pressure from the resulting kick-in, so they play on instantly. Wait. Hang on. No. 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 They haven't. They can't have. This isn't supposed to happen anymore. This shouldn't. Haven't the AFL told us year on year how much they've invested in the arc? Haven't they told us after each major mistake that the system would be fixed? This is the man to blame. Not Ben Keys. Not Dane Rampy, who clattered into the post to fool the umpire into thinking the ball contacted for what I wish was the first time in his career. Not the goal umpire himself, who was left hung out to dry by having to make an interpretive call in a high-pressure environment in a role that isn't even his primary job and whose identity had to be protected to avoid pointed death threats from angry fans and tell me more about how women are too emotional to run America. No. The man to blame is the head of the billion-dollar organisation that pays that goal umpire a pittance while leaving season-defining calls to his interpretation with no recourse to check his answers and forcing him to work a second job on weekends. Gillan McLachlan, already fleeing the building, didn't have anything tangible to offer the Crows for the robbery of a crucial 4 points in an 8-point swing that saw the Swans gain the final spot in the finals, which would have likely belonged to Adelaide if this is called correctly. To his and their credit, Ben Keys and the Crows never lashed out at anyone after this. They could have. Some said they should have. After all, this call prevented them from making finals, right? Well, no. That Swans game was Adelaide's 5th single-digit loss to a top 8 side, with all 5 losses containing more Adelaide behinds than goals. Adelaide weren't the least accurate side in the league. They weren't the least accurate side in the finals race. Hell, they weren't even the least accurate side to play out of Adelaide Oval. But inaccuracy cost them more than any other team. The Power lost one match by 2 goals or less. The Bulldogs and Adelaide lost 5. You would think the Bulldogs, the less accurate of the two by far and indeed the least accurate team of the last 2 years, would have lost more due to their inaccuracy. Well, let's see. The Bulldogs finished 9th with a 12-11 record. If they'd converted at the league average of 53.17%, they'd have gone at 14-9, winning 2 extra games, finishing 5th and facing GWS, one of the 2 teams they would have beaten if they'd kicked even remotely straight in the first final. Definitely a wasted season. Adelaide, though, if they'd kicked to league average standards in front of goal in each game, not even league leading, but just enough to earn a C-, a level below that which they completed the actual 2023 season as a whole, well, they wouldn't have won 2 more games. They'd have won 6 more. The round 1 fadeaway against the Giants, as well as every single game that was decided by under 10 points, gets reversed. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Collingwood twice lose to a Crows side going at 53% in front of goal. So not only do Adelaide increase their win tally by over 50%, 4 top 8 teams lose points. This shakes up the ladder. Minor premiers Collingwood drop to 3rd. Brisbane and Melbourne drop to 4th and 5th. Carlton and the Saints drop a spot, Port skip up to 2nd, oops, and the Bulldogs jump the 2 Sydney sides who both miss the finals, and remember one of them got a point away from making the grand final. The bottom 8 remain the same, only Adelaide is left, so where do they end up? No. The 11-12 Adelaide, who won as few games in 2023 as a team that lost to the Giants by over 20 goals, should have finished first. That Essendon side was only one of 2 that Adelaide lost to when scoring more goals than behinds, a 9-2 record. On the days they misplaced their kicking boots, they went 1-10. Even reversing one of these results, an errant shot going the other side of the post, Adelaide at least makes the finals. They had warnings. In the Matthew Nicks era, 2023 was the first of his sides to beat the league average accuracy marked here in orange, and even then, they only just did it. Sure, they've improved significantly, but they still weren't good enough. 37 guys played for the Crows in 2023. 10 didn't score. 4 went perfect but at low volume, high net. Of their volume scorers, i.e. guys who scored 10 goals or more, most of them went above the 53.1% league average mark. But that's not the whole story. Players who scored 10 goals or more in 2023 did so on average at 61.73%. How many of the 10 Crows who got into the double digits hit that mark? 4. And one of them missed 2/3 of the season. Of those 3, only Shane McAdam matched or beat their 2023 accuracy levels in these 6 games. Walker got real close and scored more than any other 2 Crows combined in these games. Philthorpe only had 4 chances, spraying 2, and Pedlar at least managed to go at 100% in 2 of those games. Nothing hugely shocking there. Even the inaccurate Ben Keys improved his accuracy in these crucial close matches, even counting this 8 players managed multiple shots across what I'm calling the 6, and regressed from their usual accuracy. Jordan Dawson whiffed 2 chances at a captain's goal against his old side. Riley O'Brien and Rory Laird, who have consistently been among the worst set shots I've seen for the last 5 years, continued their Stevie Wonder reputation, combining for 0 goals, 7 missing shots in the final 3 of these squeakers. Jake Saligo, a player I really like by the way, scored 1 goal from 5 shots, and Chase Jones's misses in the first Pies game did him no favours either. But there are 3 players, 3 critical cogs of the best forward line in the league, who we can point the finger at. The first, and least surprising, is Josh Rochelle. In round 1, he kicked 3 goals 1. Across the other 5 of these games, he kicked 3 goals 10. 7 of those behinds came against Collingwood, matches Adelaide lost by a combined 3 points. But he's a 19-year-old small forward. Inconsistency is to be expected, particularly in high-pressure situations. Then we have Darcy Fogarty, the sharpshooter, who always has Dwayne Russell on the point of climax for every set shot. He shot below league average accuracy for players over 10 goals, and in these 6 games he went at under 45%, only having 9 scoring shots. But there was one man with more star power, who flew at an even lower height. It pains me to say it, but it's Isaac. In his 15 other games in 2023, Rankin scored 28 goals at 63.64%. In the 5 of these games that he played, he kicked 8 goals at a shade under 43%. 800 grand he cost, and despite the excitement he generated, despite the goal of the year contenders, despite generating more points than all but 11 other players in the league, despite making my All-Australian squad, he arguably did more to sink Adelaide's finals hopes than any other man. This is how it happened. Not a single blown call, but multiple missed shots. 12 shots, in fact. An average of 2 for each of these games separates a 10th place side from the minor premiership that their scoring record suggests they deserve almost as much as the actual minor premiers, who they not only lost narrow games to twice, but who also went on to do this. It's these 12 shots. In fact, hang on, let me get my footy for a second.
Hi, GAZ-man coming back at you again, this time once more from West Croydon Football Club, who do not know that I'm here in any way, shape or form. I am going to try and kick some goals now with this autographed football, only one I have, yikes. Just so you know, the wind is coming straight towards the camera, i.e. away from the goal, so I've made this way more difficult. Also, that is not inflated enough, you jackass, let's go.
Yeah, I know there's no pressure on these shots. Yeah, I know they're probably not marked out exactly accurately. But you're telling me that I, an idiot, have got a better conversion rate under these situations and circumstances than a professional football team. Oh god, it's Billy Frampton all over again. In fact, let's go back to Pythagorean wins again. Only 24 teams before 2023 failed to get within 4 wins of their Pythagorean expectation. Only one, the famously non-clutch 2013 North Melbourne, sailed below 5. In 2023, there were 2. Geelong, of course, and just below them, Adelaide. This wasn't just a missed opportunity. This wasn't a season ruined by a blown call. This, for Adelaide, was a season they, and they alone, wasted. But still, hopes were high. They had a young squad that could only improve over the off-season, especially with some fine draft additions. Everyone in the know expected a top 8 finish for 2024, and some expected even more. They wouldn't waste another season. Surely. Instead, they threw that season away before April had ended. But that's another story.